With the shooting and the arrest over, the Army's quick reaction force was helicoptered in to deal with the fallout. One of its members now reveals what the SAS told him when he first arrived on the ground.
He said, "Bernadette Devlin's been shot." To which I replied, "Yes, and I'm the Pope in Rome." Obviously, not that I didn't believe it. It was just something that, you know, to get that name branded at you, having just got out of an helicopter. And it turned out that she had. So we went as quick as we could round to the house. I think we went in through the kitchen door. And lo and behold, her and her husband, Michael Makaliski, had also been shot. So we give first aid as much as we could.
The question that immediately sprang to mind was why the SAS hadn't shot or arrested the Loyalists before the deed was done. Why didn't the soldiers stop you? Why didn't they apprehend you before you kicked the door down?
I couldn't answer that.
Because if they had seen you going in, they would have seen you presumably carrying weapons? You'd have expected
if they saw us, they must have saw the weapons.
You would have expected them to have intervened and stopped you?
I suppose so, but you would need to ask them.
So why had the Loyalist killers been allowed to bring down the telephone line and smash in the door without being stopped? It was what the corporal asked the SAS.
I said, "Well, how come you didn't get them on the way in?" Of which there was a pause, and he said, "We must have been looking the other way," which did for me. It was a throwaway line as far as I was concerned, and I just went about my business.
The McAllisters were given first aid by the corporal and then flown to Belfast for emergency surgery. Miraculously, they both survived, but the mystery of why the SAS hadn't intercepted the Loyalists remained unresolved.
Obviously, it was the talk of the town. The more we talked about it, the more we thought, you know, surely they would have got them on the way in. Remains unanswered, as far as I was concerned.
What do you think happened?
Personally, my personal view is that they allowed them in to do the deed and then stop them on the way out.
Meanwhile, the continuing drama inside the maze was about to reach its climax. The prisoners were never given their own clothes and felt duped by the Brits. A second hunger strike began, now led by their commanding officer, Bobby Sands. Sands died after 66 days on hunger strike. 100,000 mourners followed his coffin. What made his death even more significant was that he'd just been elected a Westminster MP. Others were to follow in his wake. This time there'd been no Michael Oatley to intervene. By now he was out of the country. Attitudes on both sides had hardened, and Mrs. Thatcher refused to give in. 9 more Republican prisoners were to follow Sands to his grave. With the first hunger strike resolved, the second should never have happened. Did you think that 10 men would die?
That was what we were fearful of when we dealt with the first hunger strike. Yes, we did believe that they had the resolution to go through with this and that men would die. That was why we tried to avert it and did so on the first hunger strike. But having averted it once, I can well see that there was very, very little that anybody could do to avert it the second time. There was no room for compromise then. None was sought.
Wouldn't it have been worth just giving them their own clothes? To save 10 lives, to save the political gains that Sinn Féin got from the hunger strike, all that?
Oh, probably, yes. Yes. But once these situations arise in which the stakes are raised on both sides, it becomes very difficult.
The IRA had raised the stakes on the military front too, even before the hunger strike. They'd ambushed an army convoy at Warren Point with 2 huge remote-control bombs. The first was hidden in a hay lorry. A paratrooper saw it explode.
I'm actually watching as it happens, and then the hay lorry and the second truck just disappeared together. A big explosion. The truck went up about 100 feet in the air and came down on the central reservation.
18 soldiers were killed.
It was arguably, I think, the most successful and certainly one of the best planned IRA attacks of the whole campaign. We'd always said that one of these days there will be a spectacular. It was almost inevitable that at some stage or other they were going to succeed because we'd failed to interdict them.
The IRA had dealt the British a double blow that day. In the Irish Republic a few hours before, it had killed Lord Mountbatten with another remote-control bomb. The Prime Minister wanted to know what had gone wrong. Why was there no intelligence? Who was to blame? An inquest was held and the government appointed a former head of MI6 to sort out the intelligence mess. It could not be allowed to happen again.
The intelligence gathering of the RUC and of the army was not, I suspect, effectively shared. That is my suspicion, but I think it's probably a well-founded suspicion that it was not effectively shared.
In what sense?
They weren't talking to each other when they should have been talking to each other.
But that's astonishing, isn't it? That here you have 2 organisations united in what one assumes to be the defeat of terrorism, and yet they're not talking to each other.
Well, that was the problem.
By the early 80s, the rivalries appeared to have been sorted out. With the police now in control, operations were directed from this office, the Tasking and Coordinating Group, or TCG. It's never been filmed before. From here, all the intelligence agencies, Army, Police and MI5, monitor operations on the ground and act accordingly.
I think they were tremendously effective. These were organisations into which all intelligence should flow, whether that be from human agents, or whether it be intelligence technically gained, or whether it be information gleaned simply from members of the public phoning in, or from officers who are out and about their normal duties.
Among the TCG's resources are 2 offensive arms. One is the SAS, the other the HMSU, the Headquarters Mobile Support Unit, the RUC's anti-terrorist squad trained by the SAS. Like the SAS, this special police unit became the focus of intense controversy. At the end of 1982, the police unit shot dead 3 IRA men and 2 members of the INLA. None of them was armed. Republicans accused the RUC of operating a shoot-to-kill policy. The fact that police officers were tried for murder and acquitted simply convinced Republicans that there was a cover-up.
It is being that Crown has now given the licence to kill through the newly formed shoot-to-kill assassination squad of the RUC.
The officer appointed to investigate these sensitive killings was John Stalker, the Deputy Chief Constable of Greater Manchester. There was widespread outrage when it was revealed that officers from the Special Police Unit had not told the truth.